Men and women with special needs, sometimes we just don't know how to approach them and how to interact. And so we want to set up an opportunity here where it's going to be so easy to do that. We'll have some special things that kids can come and that they can win special prizes if they'll go up and just introduce themselves to our men and women. Just say hi. Whether we're at the just work in the crowd, meeting people, or at a photo booth, we'll have some of our men and women, or on the talent stage. We want to just have a few touches throughout that event where people can, again, just put a face with the word special needs.
Mid-South Viewpoint, a Christian news and information feature of Bott Radio Network 640 AM, discussing the news, views, issues, and concerns that affect our community. Join us now for today's edition of Mid-South Viewpoint.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Always a pleasure to have you here. Today we welcome Donnie Mayo, who's the director of Shepherd's Haven, and we're going to learn more about this ministry and how you can connect with an event coming up real soon. But first, Donnie, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
You've kind of morphed into some different ministries. When I first met you, you were on staff at Bellevue.
Right.
And now you're directing Shepherd's Haven.
That's right. So I was on staff with Bellevue for about 6.5 to 7 years. And while on staff, I was asked to be on the board of directors for Shepherd's Haven. I served there for a couple of years. They approached me and asked me if I would be interested in the executive director position. And originally I told them no. I just didn't think that was the right time. Well, about almost a year later, the Lord just brought it back to the surface, and my wife and I, we just couldn't get away from it. We just knew that's what the Lord had. And so now I've been on staff with Shepherd's Haven now for a little over a year.
Tell me about the purpose and the mission of Shepherd's Haven.
Shepherd's Haven is a ministry for adults who have special needs. So whether that's Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, adults, so people normally in the special needs community over the age of 21 who have special needs. And really with Shepherd's Haven, there's two branches to what we do. And one, we operate a couple of residential homes just outside of Arlington in Tennessee. And we own a piece of property, and we have a couple of homes with room for 8 men or 8 women with special needs. And we also have couples on our staff that live there to give 24-hour care. The goal there is to stay away from facility, away from an institution. This is a home where a family who can no longer give the level of care they'd like for their loved one can place them there, and they'll be cared for with the level of family love and care, or as close as we can get to it.
And many families have to make that decision at some point in life, unfortunately, because of some of the medical needs or other pressing situations and circumstances that happen in individual families. Now, you told me there's some 30,000, I believe, individuals who fit in the category of special need adults in the Memphis area.
That's right. It's just over 30,000, and as a community, is we're able to identify better certain, whether it's disorders or diagnosis, that number is growing. That number is certainly growing, and you would be surprised how many of the men and women that are a part of Shepherd's Haven that have no diagnosis. As they were being raised, there was no diagnosis to be had. So as those become clearer and clearer, that number is just going to grow. And so we are excited that the Lord has placed us here, and it's a ripe field for us to be. So just trying to place ourselves in the right spot for families to see, hey, this might be an option for a loved one.
Donnie, you were a little apprehensive about answering the call, this executive director position. Walk us through that journey for you. I mean, obviously, you had some interest in this ministry for being on the board or taking the opportunity to be on the board. So walk us through when you first heard about this ministry. What was it about Shepherd's Haven originally, when you first heard about it, that interested you, or you thought, hey, I'd like to help and maybe see what I could do to help support this work?
Originally, when I started just being involved in any level with Shepherd's Haven, there was a connect. I have an uncle who has Down syndrome. James, he is 57 or 58 now. And so there was a connection there. And so I'd volunteer for something here or there. And as I watched how the staff loved and cared for special needs individuals, there's no way you couldn't be attracted by that. There's just something that's going to resonate in your heart with the level of care the staff provides. So when they asked me to be on the board, it was a no-brainer. As they asked me to be a part of just certain things over those couple of years of being on the board, again, it was a no-brainer. Then when they approached me about being on staff, it was a staff that anyone would want to come alongside of.
Yeah.
I've said before, the men and women, or the special needs men and women, are the best thing about Shepherd's Haven, but our staff, the ones that work with the men and women, are what makes Shepherd's Haven excellent. excellent.
Donnie, I remember when I was back in high school in ninth grade, I think it was called the Red Cross Club. Been so long ago, I can't remember exactly. But one of the field trips that we took was to Arlington Developmental Center. And boy, as a freshman in high school, walking into a facility like this, not having been around some of the medical conditions and health issues that some people have and living with, needing an institution like Arlington to be able to care for them. But boy, my heart was really broken because there was this coldness. I don't mean that the people there didn't care for the residents and those they were trying to take care of their needs, but it was an institution,
Right.
It wasn't that home. I had a neighbor growing up, too, that had two of her own severely handicapped mentally, physically. They were twins. They were both like 18 years old. I remember going over and playing with these kids, just throwing the ball, maybe reading a book. Or
Right.
I actually went on field trips with them. Sometimes there would be special trips they would take, to either go fishing or whatever, and I got invited to go. It opened my eyes, I think some people maybe not feel as comfortable
Right.
being around people with special needs, maybe because of fear or not knowing what to say or not knowing what to do.
That's exactly what we found. It's not a lack of desire that people have to be involved. It's just a lack of understanding. How do I communicate? What do I do? I'm not trained in any way to give care to men and women with special needs. I always tell people when they're interested in being a part, volunteering, I say, hey, you don't need any training. Here's what you need. Can you sit there and play a game? Can you listen to them talk? Can you just ask them questions? And if you can do that, then you can be a volunteer with Shepherd's Haven, because that's what our men and women are looking for. They're not necessarily looking to be doted on and overly cared for. They're looking for a friend.
And I think just taking time to be a friend, like you said, to be the ear, maybe to throw a ball, to read a book, to play a game. And it's really not that complicated, is it?
No, it's not. We have actually a large percentage of our volunteers, as they come in, they'll end up doing the majority of the time they're there with our men and women is just sitting next to them, helping them paint something, helping them play a game, asking questions and listening to them. Everyone wants a friend. And a lot of times our men and women are not in a position to have a ton of friends. And so if someone else comes alongside them, just loves on them and just becomes a friend, that's exactly what they need.
So basically there's a breakdown of two areas I'm understanding here. The residential homes, but also the day center. Is that separate from the residential facility?
For the most part, the residential homes, that's one branch of what we focus on. The second branch is a day program. It operates Monday through Friday at Bellevue Baptist Church. Bellevue is gracious enough to give us space. They give us this space to meet in Monday through Friday, so it's from 8:30 to 3:30. So the men and women that live in our homes, we bus them into the day center, and then there's about another 20 to 25 men and women who live with their families or other caregivers that are brought in as well. And so at the day center, every day they're a part of making crafts, they're a part of Bible study and exercise, and not only that, this is my favorite part, they go out and serve every week. So whether they're going to a nursing home to make visits and to sing songs, or if they're going to a thrift center to help sort things that people have brought and donated, we believe that God has created everyone for value and to contribute, to give back, to serve. And our men and women don't want to just be served. We want to go out and serve.
Donnie, I have some friends that have a daughter who has Down syndrome, and I was talking to them recently, and they were sharing with me about a special needs camp their daughter got to go to this past summer for the first time. Of course, they were a little apprehensive, not knowing how she would respond, but she ate it up. I mean,
sure.
she loved the opportunity. Plus, it gave them a break, know? And I think that's something that we don't understand sometimes, not having a special needs child or a family member, realizing that there's that 24/7 attention just constantly in your mind.
Right.
And you talk about this day program. I'm sure very similar opportunity is afforded to families. Just have a few hours, even to try to go to the grocery store or take care of some of the needs they need to around their home.
So my wife and I, we have 2 little boys. They do not have any special needs that we know of at this time. But I tell you what, my wife loves to have a few hours break here and there to get some things done. A lot of times, parents who have children with special needs never get that break. And so thankfully, the day center can be that. And so you'll see parents come and drop their loved one off. Hey, they're going to the grocery store. They're going to a movie. They're going to lunch with friends. It gives them that outlet that we all need.
That's a great, great resource. Now, is the day center open for anybody? Do you have to take applications, or is there a limit to how many people you can take?
So yes, we do. You have to fill out an application. We are not set up to give care to every adult who has special needs. So there's a window of men and women in terms of the level of how they function that we can give care and how we're set up. So yes, if someone were to contact us or go online and to fill out an application to get that to us, that's the first step. But in terms of, is there a max number that we can take? No, there's not. We have to meet certain ratios by the state standards of participants to one staff. Now, we try to keep that a little bit more in the 6.5 to 1 range. But we got to a point where we just needed more staff. We'd hire more staff.
Donnie, what are you learning about the nature and the character of God as you minister to adults with special needs?
That his promises and also how he has created each individual, special needs or not, don't change. His grace is still sufficient. He still gives everything that's needed. There's still purpose. My uncle that I mentioned earlier, he has really deteriorated in the last several years. But still, even where he is during the day, he might take a newspaper and he might fold that newspaper 40 times during the day. But he's taking great care in doing that. And so even if to me that might look, oh, what is he doing? That just doesn't seem like much value to him. It is. God always gives opportunity for value and for worth. And so special needs or not, those things are still woven inside of everyone.
Wow, what a great picture there. As you were speaking that, I was just thinking about just how magnificent and powerful and mighty God is. As he looks at us, the things that we do that we think are so wonderful and great and we're trying to be such a success in, maybe to God it looks like we're just folding newspaper, My goodness,
right.
What an example. What's one of the most challenging things for you in this work?
Everyone's got a story. You and your family have stories, and if everyone knew it, right, there would be certain things that people would resonate with or wonder, and same with my family. These men and women have stories too, and so many of them can be heartbreaking. It's hard to hear some of their stories, just to think through what are the options here moving forward in terms to give care. We had one of our men had a pretty big stroke last week. We got him to the hospital, right, everything. I mean, he's great. He's doing just fine. But also his father was there, and his father's 81, and his son is 61, and so just thinking, what's the story, right, moving forward? And even that dad, he brought it up. Now, thankfully, he's been a part of Shepherd's Haven. His son has for years, and he knows his son will be cared for. We hear stories come along all the time, and maybe Shepherd's Haven isn't the right thing, but what is? And then running into that wall sometimes of not sure what it's going to look like for them. And that's sad. That's hard. But it pushes you. We have to lean back into the Father. Again, whether if Shepherd's Haven's the right spot or someone else, God's got it. There's no doubt. He's not going to leave that person lacking what they need, so we just have to trust the Lord.
We're visiting with Donnie Mayo today. He's the executive director of the Shepherd's Haven. There's a fall festival that's coming up on October the 27th. That's why we got together today to share with our Bot Radio Network listeners, hey, this is an opportunity to enjoy a petting zoo. There's going to be some food vendors and inflatables. Tell us about the fall festival.
October the 27th, we're going to have a fall festival out in Arlington, Tennessee. And really, there's two main reasons we're wanting to do this. One, again, our residential homes are just right outside the town. And so much of our men and women's lives happen in Arlington. And the town itself, whether it's the town, the Chamber of Commerce, the residents, have been so welcoming to our men and women. And so I'll talk with folks in Arlington. They'll say, yeah, I've heard of Shepherd's Haven, but they just aren't sure of exactly what it is. So this event will give us an opportunity to better introduce ourselves to the town. But then also, we love the town of Arlington. I mean, it's so family friendly. Again, they've been so welcoming to us. So we want to offer an event back to the town that we think will be valuable to the families there.
Is there cost involved to come?
We're going to charge $5 a person with a max of $25 a family. Okay, so we're not wanting to put, again, we want to keep it family friendly. That includes cost. And that $5 gets you in, gets your wristband. You can be a part of anything going on. The only thing that would be for sale would be the food. There's going to be a couple of restaurants selling food, but outside of that, whether it's riding ponies, the petting zoo, hayride, all the games and the prizes that can be won will all be covered for that $5 a person.
I mean, you got live music out there. As I mentioned, inflatables. There's also a craft sale, too. And when we talk about crafts now, my understanding is one of the outlets of the ministry of Shepherd's Haven is the pottery. Talk about that.
That's one of the things that people who know Shepherd's Haven know the pottery, know the crafts. Or men and women, they make magnets, they make crosses, they do woodwork. It just keeps going on and on. And they're so creative in what they can do, but everything that we make is handmade by the men and women. So if it's a piece of pottery, our men and women rolled that out by hand. They cut it, they designed it, they kilned it, they painted it. everything. And so many of the pieces even have their names written on the back of who made it. So all the things that they make periodically throughout the year, we have opportunities to sell those. And so yeah, there'll be a craft sale there. Our men and women, you mentioned the live music. Part of that, an element of that will be our men and women performing some of their talent. So you might see an Elvis there. You might see a Beatles song going on. You might see Amazing Grace and a fella going to be up there telling jokes. So they'll be a part of the whole event.
This is a wonderful, as you mentioned, bringing the exposure to your small kids and helping them to see there are people in life that need some help. They need somebody to understand them, like you said, to listen, to be able to support in ways they can, whether it be a volunteer, at least be able to be a real human being around somebody with special needs. Taking time, we get so busy in our lives with our own sporting activities and things that we have to do with as a family, but taking time to stop for these few hours. We're talking from 5:30 to 8:30, October 27th.
That's right. A lot of times we're so busy, but then also, you mentioned this earlier, men and women with special needs, sometimes we just don't know how to approach them and how to interact. And so we want to set up an opportunity here where it's going to be so easy to do that. We'll have some special things that kids can come and that they can win special prizes if they'll go up and just introduce themselves to our men and women. Just say hi. Whether we're at the just working the crowd, meeting people, or at a photo booth, we'll have some of our men and women, or on the talent stage. We want to just have a few touches throughout that event where people can, again, just put a face with the word special need and say, hey, that's not all that daunting. That's not all that. I can talk with that person. Yeah. And so I think this will give us a good chance for that.
Donnie, what ways are you guys funded? I know, of course, a festival like this is not going to fund a ministry like with the needs that you have, I'm sure. But is there a foundation? Do you get government grants?
Specifically for the Fall Festival, we have a few sponsors that have stepped up to help us because Shepherd's Haven couldn't pull this off on our own. So Wolf Chase Toyota is actually going to be a title sponsor, and then some businesses in the town of Arlington. So Brian Elder Roofing and First Citizens Bank and Mark Louderback with Edward Jones have stepped up to be sponsors. But for the most part, Shepherd's Haven is funded in three ways. One, before I even get there, we are a standalone 501c3. We don't take any money directly from the government. And that's a conscious choice that was made at the foundation of Shepherd's Haven, will be continued forever, so that we can always operate out of the biblical principles we were founded upon. So tuition, we do charge, whether someone lives in the homes or goes to the day center, we charge a monthly fee. But even we work really hard to keep that as affordable as possible. Some folks still can't afford it, so we offer tuition adjustment to anyone that needs it. We don't turn anyone away due to finances. So tuition is one element. Another is through sales, so the craft sales. 6 or 7 times a year, we'll have a craft sale, and by the time that's over with, that adds up, and that helps. Outside of that, it's individuals who have decided to give, whether it's their business or them as an individual. We rely heavily on individual support.
What do you enjoy most about your work with Shepherd's Haven?
Telling people about Shepherd's Haven. It has been so fun to see how welcoming people have been to listen and to hear. And so many people have been willing and said, hey, yeah, I'll even come out there and take a look. I love getting to show people our homes because people still have something in their mind of thinking of an institution, right, or something that's cold, maybe like a hospital, and they walk in and, hey, this looks like my house. Well, yeah, we want to create a home. So having opportunities to tell people about the work of Shepherd's Haven, the special stories of our men and women and what they're capable of doing, and to watch people just grasp and say, wow, there's a place like this out there, and say, yeah, there is, and once you come look at it.
Residentially, you have room for 8 men and 8 women in 2 separate facilities. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, is there a waiting list for those to come? I mean, is there plans to make Shepherd Haven even bigger?
Right. So right now, there is no waiting list. So right now, we have room for 1 male in our men's home and room for 2 ladies in our ladies' home. So if someone out there knows someone that we might be able to service, put them in touch with us. Let's walk through the application process, see if it might be the right place. When we fill up, we do start a waiting list. Yeah. But right now, we have some space.
As residents enter into Shepherd's Haven, what about contact with their family, those who are able to, that might have a parent or a family member still living? Do you encourage that? How does that work out?
It's an open door for the families. It is by no means you drop them off and then you don't get to come. You can come every day if you want. Most of our men and women go home with their families over the weekends. They don't have to, but they certainly welcome to. They can come and go as they please. So the room that they have, they decorate it how they want. Their families come in, they can paint, move in their own furniture. It's their room. It's their restroom. But yeah, the families can come and eat dinner. They can pick them up and take them to movies or go on family vacation, whatever they would like. So it is an open door to families that want to come.
Now, we've spoken some, Donnie, about getting involved with Shepherd's Haven. What are some ways our listeners can get involved with Shepherd's Haven?
Sure. There's really two main areas, right, that would apply to most folks. If the evenings or the weekend would work better for someone and they work during the day, they could come out to the homes and they could bring dinner, or they could just come and have dinner. You can show up, not bring anything, just yourself. If you're willing to come and hang out with our men and women, maybe play some Wii bowling with them or watch a movie, or one night say, hey, you know what? We'll bring pizza. Contact us. We can set that up. If you want to come, over the weekend and hang out and play some games or just eat dinner or come have lunch, do that. Contact us. We can line that up. But if it's during but then also if, maybe you say, hey, I don't know about necessarily hanging out with the men and women right now, but if you can cut grass, we got grass. If you can make minor repairs, we're always in need of things like that. But then during the day at our day program, maybe you have some hours or a whole day freed up. You could come and talk with us, and you could come anywhere from 1 hour to all day, any day of the week. And again, you wouldn't have to give direct care. You can just come and be a friend and hang out and help.
Now,
that'd be more than welcome.
Do you and your family actually live at Shepherd's Haven? Is your residence separate?
Yeah, my residence is separate. So my wife and I live about 15 minutes from the homes, but we have one of our homes. The way it's designed, there's a couple that actually lives in that home in an apartment that's attached to it to give care to the ladies. But then the men's home, we have a home built right next to it where we have another couple that lives that gives 24-hour care to the men's home.
Are you also involved during the week of making sure some of the residents get the medical, if they have doctor's appointments and things like that?
Meds, the way that's set up is it is set up completely through the families, and we work with an organization called Guardian that packs all of that and sends it to us. We just punch out that days, and each individual takes their own. But in terms of doctor visits and hospital visits, the families are responsible for that. We have a few instances where we don't have families, and so we're able to work some things around there.
What about preparing all those meals? I mean, you mentioned, of course, people can donate food, maybe bring out a meal, but ongoing, I'm sure that you guys are responsible to make sure there's a proper diet for all the residents.
Oh, absolutely. We joke and call it the Shepherd's Haven diet. A lot of times when men and women come in, they're quite overweight. But we know that when they come in, we have a pretty good health plan, right? That helps to, maybe I need to go live there for a little while and trim up. But breakfast, lunch, and dinner we provide. And so, in the mornings it might be cereal, might be pancakes. At lunch they pack a lunch and take to the day center with them. But at night, hey, they're each of our house parents, they're cooking for 8 and 10, depending on who's in the home. Except for the men's home, actually, the men's home, the way it's set up with Leisinger, the couple that gives care there actually helps the men and women learn how to cook and prepare their meals on their own. But there are large Sam's and Costco bills for Shepherd's Haven.
I bet they are. Is there any kind of real special or unique situation that happened at Shepherd's Haven?
That's a great question. Yes. In the last calendar year, we have had 3 of our residents get saved and baptized. The men and women who live in the homes and stay over the weekend, they all go to Bellevue's Arlington campus. And so 2 of our men and women have gotten saved and been baptized once a year. Bellevue Arlington does a baptismal service in a swimming pool with the whole congregation around. It's a really neat experience, but we've had 2 of our men and women get baptized there, and we had another get baptized, in the Sunday morning service. So that for me, to see that, every day there's Bible study out at the homes and devotion time, but to see our men and women, our staff is talking to them about the Lord. We're not just there as caregivers. Our staff members view themselves as helping disciple the men and women that are there. And so to see the men and women grasp and talk about Scripture and the Lord, but then also to move to a point where on their own they say, hey, I want to receive Christ as my Savior. I need to be baptized. And to talk with them and to see that they grasp that, that God has opened their mind to understand His Scriptures, and for them to grasp that, that's unique. That's special.
Well, what about you and your wife, Donnie? Do you guys get overwhelmed sometimes in the work itself? I know you believe God has called you, obviously, to it, but there are stresses, I'm sure, related to anything you do in ministry. There's hardships to endure no matter what ministry you're in. And maybe you have some more unique situations because you're caring for a lot of people. What about some of those ways you find your own peace, your own relief or encouragement as you go through this work and do this ministry?
I think any area of ministry is overwhelming. I believe on some level it should be. It is supposed to be beyond us because we're working for the Lord, right? We're to rely and lean in on Him. But for Catherine and I, to it, the sweetness of the men and women at Shepherd's Haven is constantly refreshing. It's one of those. It just doesn't get old. The sweetness of the ministry has not diminished from the first day I started working there until now. So that's constantly refreshing. My wife and I, we believe in a lot of family time. There's a lot of family time. So those boys, they help to to invigorate us and to keep us going. The Lord's been faithful. And even in the 8th or 9 month process of deciding to leave the local church at Bellevue to move into this role, my wife and I spent months asking the Lord, just stacking up confirmation, because we knew that there were going to be hard days. But we can always look back at that confirmation and go, no, the enemy is not going to tell us a lie. He's not going to distract us, but God's called us. And we've got this confirmation here. So the Lord's been so faithful, and He constantly reminds us that He's got us where He wants us.
Thanks for sharing that, Donnie, because I think sometimes when we look at certain people in the ministry, we say, wow, they're just things are going so well with them. But there are those challenging times, But thanks for sharing. You've seen God be faithful, and He is so faithful. We've got this fall festival for our friends to come out and enjoy, October the 27th, 5:30 to 8:30. What's the exact location?
The exact location, 11695 Highway 70. And there is one Kroger in the town of Arlington, and we are just east of that Kroger. There's there's a strip center with a large parking lot and 2 large fields next to it, and we're going to take up all of that.
So there'll be signage and things.
Oh, there'll be signage everywhere. You can't miss the inflatables and the hay rides. You won't be able to miss it.
And again, you just bring $5 individual up to $25 for an entire family. So if I've got 13 or 15 kids, I can all come as one group for $25. Huh?
Load them up and come on. It'll be a good deal for you.
There's going to be games, hay rides, live music, pony rides, the craft sale, and the inflatables, food vendors there too. Of course, the petting zoo. That's always fun.
Absolutely.
Great way to support. Now, I also want to let folks know about your website, which is shepherdshaven.org. And Shepherds, of course, is spelled SHEPHERDS Haven.org, and you got a great website.
It is. It's a fun website. From there, you can get any information you'd like, whether about the Fall Festival or other things that we do.
And you guys do a lot. Donnie, thank you so much for what you and your wife are doing for Christ's kingdom, for those special needs adults at Shepherd's Haven. Thank you so much for sharing your heartbeat and your passion and love about this ministry with us today.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and thank you for having us.
Friends, that's all the time we have on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. Don't forget now this Fall Festival, October 27th, 5:30 to 8:30 in Arlington. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great family outing. Make sure you come and help support this great work at Shepherd's Haven. I'm Byron Tyler. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Mid-South Viewpoint. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can email us. Our address is wcrv@botradionetwork.com. This has been Mid-South Viewpoint, another Christian news and information feature from Bot Radio Network 640 AM.